The morning sun painted the Arizona desert in shades of gold and orange as Elena walked out to check on her cattle. At 23, she had been living alone on the remote ranch for almost a year now, ever since her grandmother passed away during the harsh winter months. The silence that surrounded her was both a comfort and a curse. Elena had never known what it meant to have a real family. Her parents died when she was just 5 years old, killed in an attack while traveling west in search of a better life. Her grandmother, a tough woman with weathered hands and a heart of stone, took her in but never showed much warmth. Love was a luxury they couldn't afford on the frontier, her grandmother used to say. The ranch stretched for miles in every direction, with nothing but red rocks, desert plants, and endless sky as far as the eye could see. The nearest town was 2 days away on horseback, and Elena rarely made the journey unless she absolutely had to. She had learned to be completely self-sufficient out of necessity. Every morning, she would wake before dawn to milk the cows and feed the horses. She mended fences, branded cattle, and fought off the occasional wild animal that threatened her livestock. Her hands were rough and calloused from years of hard work, and her red hair was always pulled back in a practical braid that kept it out of her face while she worked. The loneliness was the hardest part. Elena found herself talking to the animals just to hear a voice, even if it was her own. She would tell the horses about her dreams and share her worries with the cattle as they grazed. Sometimes she would sit on the porch in the evening and wonder if this was all there was to life. Her grandmother had left her the ranch and a small amount of money, but Elena often wondered if she should sell everything and move to town. At least there she would see other people regularly. But something kept her tied to this place. Maybe it was stubbornness, or maybe it was fear of the unknown. The ranch had been her grandmother's life work, and Elena felt responsible for keeping it going. Every fence post and water well represented years of struggle and determination. She couldn't just walk away from that legacy, even if it meant spending her life alone. Elena had taught herself to shoot when bandits started causing trouble in the area. She could hit a target at 50 yards and wasn't afraid to defend what was hers. The rifle her grandmother left her was always within reach, and Elena had used it more than once to scare off unwanted visitors. During the long winter nights, she would sit by the fire and read the few books her grandmother had owned. She had read each one dozens of times, but they were her only window into a world beyond the ranch. Sometimes she would imagine what it would be like to have someone to share meals with, someone to talk to about more than just cattle and weather. The isolation had made Elena strong and independent, but it had also made her cautious around people. When she did go to town for supplies, she kept to herself and spoke only when necessary. The townspeople saw her as the strange woman who lived alone in the desert, and Elena had learned to accept their whispers and curious stares. She had turned down the few marriage proposals that came her way over the years. The men who showed interest seemed more interested in her land than in her, and Elena wasn't desperate enough to settle for that kind of arrangement. She would rather be alone than be with someone who didn't truly want her. As she walked among her cattle that morning, Elena didn't know that her life was about to change forever. She couldn't have imagined that by evening 7 strangers would appear on her land with a proposal that would challenge everything she thought she knew about love, family, and belonging. The desert wind carried the scent of sage and dust, and somewhere in the distance a hawk cried out as it circled overhead. Elena shaded her eyes with her hand and looked toward the horizon, where heat waves made everything shimmer like a dream. She had no idea that her prayers for companionship were about to be answered in the most unexpected way possible. Elena was mending a broken section of fence when she first saw them. 7 figures appeared on the ridge that overlooked her ranch, their silhouettes dark against the bright morning sky. Her heart jumped into her throat as she dropped her tools and ran toward the house, where her rifle waited by the front door. Living alone had taught her to be cautious of strangers, especially groups of men who appeared without warning. She had heard too many stories of ranchers being robbed or worse by wandering outlaws. With shaking hands, she grabbed her rifle and positioned herself behind a wooden post on her porch, where she had a clear view of the approaching riders. But something was different about these men. They weren't rushing toward her property like bandits would. Instead, they moved slowly and deliberately, giving her plenty of time to see them coming. As they got closer, Elena realized they were Apache warriors, their long black hair flowing behind them as they rode their painted horses. Fear mixed with curiosity as Elena watched them approach. She had heard stories about the Apache from other settlers, most of them filled with warnings about their fierce fighting skills and raids on settlements. But her grandmother had once told her that not all Apache were hostile, and that some were just trying to survive in a world that was changing too fast. The leader of the group raised his hand in what appeared to be a peaceful gesture as they reached the edge of her property. He was tall and strong, with intelligent dark eyes and a face that spoke of both wisdom and determination. Despite her fear, Elena found herself studying his features and the way he carried himself with quiet confidence. The man dismounted from his horse and took several steps forward, his hands clearly visible to show he meant no harm. When he spoke, his English was broken but understandable, as if he had learned it through careful listening rather than formal teaching. "Woman with fire hair," he said, pointing at Elena's distinctive red hair that had escaped from her braid. "We come in peace. We seek the one from the vision." Elena kept her rifle pointed in their direction but found herself more curious than afraid. "What vision? What do you want with me?" The Apache leader, who would later tell her his name was Kaya, explained in his careful English that their tribal elder, an old woman with the gift of seeing the future, had received a powerful vision several moons ago. In this vision, a woman with hair the color of autumn fire would come into their lives and serve as a bridge between their people and the changing world around them. "Our elder, she see you in the sacred smoke?" Kaya continued, his eyes never leaving Elena's face. "She say you bring hope to our people. You help us survive the hard times coming." Elena lowered her rifle, slightly confused by what she was hearing. "I don't understand. I'm just a rancher. I don't know anything about visions or helping anyone survive." The other 6 warriors remained mounted but relaxed, showing that they had no intention of causing trouble. Elena could see that each of them was different in age and build, but all carried themselves with the same quiet dignity as their leader. Some were older, with faces marked by experience and hardship, while others looked barely out of their teenage years. Kaya gestured toward his companions and then back to Elena. "We are 7 brothers, not by blood but by choice. Our tribe, it grows small. Many women lost to sickness and war. Our people need children to continue our ways, to keep our culture alive." The pieces of what he was trying to tell her began to come together in Elena's mind, though she could hardly believe what she was hearing. "Are you saying that your elder's vision was about me becoming—" "What exactly?" "The vision show you as wife to all 7 of us," Kaya said simply, as if he were discussing the weather. "You bring new life to our people. You help us survive." Elena's mouth fell open in shock. She had expected many things when she saw the riders approaching her ranch, but a marriage proposal from 7 Apache warriors had never crossed her mind. The very idea seemed impossible, like something from one of the adventure stories she read during the long winter nights. That's not how things work," she stammered, raising her rifle again. "People don't just show up and ask someone to marry 7 men at once. It's not natural." Kaya nodded calmly as if he had expected this reaction. "We know our ways seem strange to your people, but vision cannot be ignored. Elders say you are the one who will save us. We come to offer protection, to show you our hearts, to prove we are worthy." Elena looked at the 7 men and felt something stir inside her that she couldn't quite identify. Despite the strangeness of the situation, there was something appealing about the idea of belonging to a family, even such an unusual one. But the rational part of her mind rebelled against the very thought. "I need time to think," she said finally. "This is all too much to understand right now." Kaya smiled for the first time since he had begun speaking, and Elena was surprised by how it transformed his stern features. "Time we have. We make camp by the stream. Wait for your answer. We protect your land while we wait. No harm will come to you or your animals." As the sun began to set behind the mountains, Elena watched the 7 warriors set up their camp near the water source at the edge of her property. She couldn't stop thinking about what Kaya had told her, and despite her confusion, she felt less alone than she had in months. Elena spent a sleepless night pacing around her small cabin, trying to make sense of what had happened. Every time she looked out her window, she could see the warm glow of the Apache campfire by the stream. The sight both comforted and terrified her. She had been alone for so long that having people nearby felt strange, even if they were there for such an unusual reason. The next morning, Kaya approached her house alone, carrying something in his hands. Elena met him on the porch, her rifle within reach but not pointed at him this time. She had spent the night thinking about his words, and curiosity was beginning to overcome her fear. "I bring gift," Kaya said, holding out a beautiful necklace made of turquoise stones and silver. "My grandmother made this many seasons ago. She say it protect the wearer and bring good fortune." Elena stared at the necklace, unsure whether accepting it would mean she was agreeing to something she wasn't ready for. "It's beautiful, but I can't take something so valuable. It should stay in your family." "You are meant to be family," Kaya replied gently. "This is why we come. Let me explain better so you understand our ways." Elena gestured for him to sit on the porch steps beside her, maintaining some distance but showing she was willing to listen. Kaya settled himself carefully, his movements graceful despite his size. "Our people live different from yours," he began, gazing out at the desert landscape. "For Apache, family is everything. We share all things: food, shelter, responsibility, joy, sorrow. When one suffers, all suffer. When one celebrates, all celebrate." Elena nodded, finding herself drawn in by his calm way of speaking. "That sounds nice, but I still don't understand how one woman can be married to 7 men. How would that even work?" Kaya smiled at her directness. "In our tradition, sometimes when tribe face danger, special marriages happen. 7 brothers or close friends may share one wife to ensure their bloodline continues. It is great honor for woman, great responsibility too. She become heart of family, mother of future generations." "But what about love?" Elena asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. "How can someone love 7 different people, or how can 7 people love one person? It seems impossible." "Love grows in many ways," Kaya answered thoughtfully. "Each of my brothers brings different gifts, different strengths. One is great hunter, one is healer, one tells stories that make children laugh, one sees far into distance and warns of danger. Together we can give you life full of everything you need." Elena found herself thinking about her lonely existence on the ranch. She had always dreamed of having a partner to share her burdens, someone to talk with during the long evenings. The idea of having 7 people who cared about her welfare seemed almost too good to be true. "What would be expected of me?" she asked quietly. "You would be honored wife, mother when children come, voice of wisdom in family decisions," Kaya explained. "You would keep house with help from all of us. You would teach us your ways and we teach you ours. You would never be alone again, never be unprotected, never lack for anything we can provide." The promise of never being alone again struck Elena deeply. She had been taking care of herself for so long that the thought of having multiple people looking out for her seemed like a dream. And the other 6 men, what do they think about this arrangement? Do they all really want a wife they have to share? Kaya's expression grew serious. "Each brother dreams of family. We know sharing is only way for all of us to have wife and children. We would rather share one good woman than have no family at all. We choose this path together." Elena stood up and walked to the edge of the porch, looking toward the mountains where the Apache camp was visible. "This is all so different from anything I ever imagined. In my world, people marry one person and that's it. They build a life with just that one person. And are they happy, these people in your world?" Kaya asked gently. Elena thought about the couples she had seen in town, many of them looking tired and worn down by life's struggles. She thought about her grandmother, who had been widowed young and spent the rest of her life alone and bitter. She thought about her own isolation and the dreams she had given up. "Some are happy," she admitted, "but many seem lonely even when they're together." Kaya stood and moved closer to her, careful not to invade her space. "We offer you something different. 7 hearts that beat for you. 7 pairs of hands to help with work. 7 minds to solve problems. 7 spirits to keep loneliness away forever." Elena felt tears forming in her eyes as she realized how much she wanted what he was describing. The logical part of her mind told her it was crazy, that she should send these men away and continue her solitary life. But her heart was singing at the possibility of belonging to a real family. "How long can you wait for my answer?" she asked. "As long as you need," Kaya replied. "But know this. Army soldiers come through this area sometimes looking for Apache who left reservation. If they find us here, there could be trouble. We risk much by staying, but you are worth the risk." Elena nodded, understanding the danger they were all in. "Give me a few more days to think. And maybe you could tell me about the other men. If I'm going to consider this, I should know who they are." Kaya's face lit up with hope. "Each day at sunset, one brother will come speak with you, show you his heart. By end of week, you will know us all. Then you decide if we are worthy of your trust. As Elena watched Kaya walk back to the camp, she fingered the turquoise necklace he had left on the porch railing. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of excitement about what the future might hold. True to his word, Kaya sent a different brother to visit Elena each evening as the sun painted the desert sky in brilliant colors. She found herself looking forward to these meetings, curious to learn about each man who claimed to want her as his wife. The first to visit was Dakota, a fierce-looking warrior with scars on his arms that spoke of many battles. Elena had expected him to be intimidating, but when he smiled, his whole face changed. He brought her fresh fish from the stream and showed her how to cook it using Apache methods, wrapping it in clay and herbs before burying it in hot coals. "I am protector," Dakota explained as they waited for the fish to cook. "My job is keep family safe from all dangers. You never need fear anything when Dakota is near." As they shared the meal, Elena learned that Dakota had lost his first wife and child to soldiers several years ago. The pain in his eyes when he spoke of them made Elena's heart ache. She began to understand that these men weren't just looking for any woman. They were hoping to heal from their own losses by building new families. The second evening brought Nalnish, a gentle man with healing hands who carried pouches of mysterious herbs and plants. He examined Elena's small garden with interest and showed her which wild plants could be used for medicine. When he noticed her hands were rough and cracked from ranch work, he mixed a soothing salve that made them feel better than they had in years. "Healing is gift from Creator," Nalnish said softly. "I share this gift with family, keep everyone healthy and strong. Wife should never suffer pain when husband can take it away." Elena found herself relaxing around Nalnish in a way she hadn't expected. His calm presence and genuine care for her comfort made her feel cherished in a way she had never experienced before. Ahiga came the third evening, and Elena quickly realized he was the scout Kaya had mentioned. His eyes constantly scanned the horizon, and he seemed to notice every sound and movement around them. But when he focused his attention on her, Elena felt like she was the only person in the world. "I watch for trouble coming from far away," Ahiga explained. "My eyes see what others miss, my ears hear danger before it arrives. Family sleeps safe when Ahiga keeps watch." He taught Elena some basic tracking skills, showing her how to read signs in the dirt that would tell her if strangers had been on her property. Elena realized that having someone with his skills around would make her feel much safer in her isolated home. Bidsy arrived on the fourth evening carrying fresh deer meat and wearing a proud smile. He was clearly the provider of the group, strong and skilled at hunting. But Elena was surprised to discover he was also gentle with animals, approaching her horses with a calm patience that immediately put them at ease. "Good hunter feeds family well," Bidsy said as he helped Elena prepare the venison. "Children grow strong when father brings home plenty of meat. Wife never worries about empty belly when Bidsy is husband." Elena watched as he effortlessly repaired a broken water trough that had been giving her trouble for weeks. His practical skills and willingness to help with ranch work impressed her more than any grand romantic gesture could have. The fifth evening brought Goyathle, an older man with silver streaking his black hair and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. He carried a small drum and spent the evening telling Elena stories of Apache history and traditions. His voice was hypnotic, and Elena found herself completely absorbed in tales of brave warriors and wise women who had shaped his people's culture. "Stories keep people alive even after bodies return to Earth," Goyathle explained. "Children learn who they are through stories of ancestors. Wife who knows stories can teach children pride in their heritage." Elena realized that marriage to these men would mean becoming part of something much larger than herself, a culture and tradition stretching back countless generations. The responsibility both excited and intimidated her. On the sixth evening, young Hastin came to visit. He was the youngest of the seven, probably only a few years older than Elena herself. His enthusiasm and optimism were infectious, and Elena found herself laughing more during their time together than she had in months. "I dream of future with big family," Hastian said, his eyes shining with hope. "Many children running around playing games, learning to ride horses. Wife who smiles and makes house feel like home." His youth and energy reminded Elena of dreams she had pushed aside years ago. She had always wanted children, but had given up hope of ever having a family. Hastian's vision of the future made those buried dreams stir to life again. Throughout the week, Elena noticed that all 7 men worked together to help maintain her ranch without being asked. They fixed her fences, tended her cattle, and even improved her water system. They moved around her property as if they already belonged there, and Elena began to imagine what it would be like to have their help permanently. By the end of the week, Elena realized that each man brought something unique and valuable to their proposed family unit. None of them were perfect, but together they created something complete. She began to understand why their culture had developed this unusual marriage arrangement. It really did provide advantages that a traditional single-spouse marriage couldn't offer. On the 7th evening, Kaya returned to hear her decision. Elena had spent the day in deep thought, weighing her lonely but safe current life against the unknown adventure these men were offering her. "I have one condition," Elena said finally. "I want to visit your village and meet your elder before I give my final answer. If I'm going to become part of your people, I need to understand what that really means." Kaya's face broke into a wide smile. "You honor us by wanting to know our ways. Tomorrow we go to village. You meet grandmother who saw you in vision, see place where family would live." As Elena prepared for sleep that night, she felt more alive than she had in years. Whatever happened next, her life would never be the same again. The journey to the Apache village took 2 days through winding mountain trails that Elena never knew existed. Riding between the 7 warriors, she felt safer than she had ever felt traveling alone. Each man took turns riding beside her, sharing stories and teaching her basic Apache words along the way. Elena was amazed by how well the brothers worked together. They seemed to communicate without words, each knowing instinctively what the others needed. When her horse stumbled on loose rocks, Dakota was immediately there to steady both horse and rider. When she grew thirsty, Nalnish appeared with water. When storm clouds gathered, Ahiga found shelter before she even noticed the change in weather. The village was hidden in a deep canyon, completely invisible from the main trails. Elena gasped when she saw it. Dozens of traditional homes arranged in a careful pattern, with gardens, corrals for horses, and areas for cooking and gathering. Children played between the buildings while women worked on crafts and men tended to various tasks. But what struck Elena most was how the entire village felt like one large family. People shared freely with each other, children were cared for by multiple adults, and everyone seemed to have a role that contributed to the whole community's well-being. "This is what we offer you," Kaya said quietly, as they rode into the village. Not just marriage to 7 men, but place in family of hundreds. The village elder, an ancient woman named Cocheta, waited for them in front of the largest dwelling. Her hair was completely white, and her face was so lined with wrinkles that she looked like she had lived for centuries. But her eyes were bright and sharp, and when she looked at Elena, the young woman felt like every secret of her heart was being examined. "You are the fire-haired one from my vision," Cocheta said in surprisingly clear English. "You have questions for old woman." Elena dismounted and approached the elder respectfully. "I need to understand what it means to marry 7 men. How can it possibly work? How do I know they won't grow tired of sharing me, or that I won't prefer one over the others?" Cocheta smiled and gestured for Elena to sit beside her on a beautifully woven blanket. "You think like white woman, worried about jealousy and competition. Apache way is different. When brothers share wife, they share everything. Responsibility, joy, burden, love. No one man must be everything to woman, and woman does not carry all weight alone." Over the next few hours, Cocheta explained the practical aspects of the arrangement. Elena would have her own space within the family dwelling, but she would also be welcomed in any of the men's areas. Children would belong to all the fathers, not just the biological one. Decisions would be made by the whole family together, with Elena's voice carrying equal weight. "But what about love?" Elena asked again, still struggling with the concept. "How can 7 people love one person equally?" "Love is not pie that gets smaller when shared," Cocheta replied wisely. "Love grows when it is given freely. Each man will love you in his own way, and you will find different things to love in each of them. Together you create something stronger than any 2 people could build alone." Elena spent 3 days in the village, learning about Apache customs and watching how families functioned. She was amazed to see other plural marriages working successfully, with wives who seemed genuinely happy and husbands who treated each other like true brothers. The 7 men courted her continuously during this time, but in different ways than white men had ever done. Instead of competing with each other for her attention, they worked together to show her how their combined efforts could make her life better. Dakota taught her to fight with knife and bow, ensuring she could protect herself even better than before. Nalnis showed her how to make medicines from plants, knowledge that could save lives in the harsh desert environment. Ahiga took her on scouting expeditions, teaching her to read the land and sky for signs of weather and danger. Bidzi brought her the finest furs and meats, demonstrating his ability to provide comfort and sustenance. Goyatle shared the oral history of his people, helping Elena understand the deep spiritual traditions she would become part of. Hastian painted her portrait on a piece of pottery, showing her how beautiful she looked through his young eyes. And Kaya spent hours talking with her about their dreams for the future, painting pictures with words of the family they could build together. Elena found herself falling in love not just with individual men, but with the idea of being part of something larger than herself. For the first time in her life, she began to understand what it meant to truly belong somewhere. But on the third evening, urgent news arrived that shattered the peaceful atmosphere. A messenger brought word that army soldiers were searching the area for Apache who had left the reservation. They were questioning settlers about any contact with hostiles and threatening punishment for anyone who helped Apache people. "You must return to your ranch immediately," Kaya told Elena. "If soldiers find you here, they will arrest you and destroy village looking for us." Elena's heart sank as she realized their time together was being cut short. She wasn't ready to make her decision yet, but circumstances were forcing her hand. "Come with me," she said impulsively. "All of you. You can hide at my ranch until the soldiers move on." The 7 men looked at each other, communicating in that wordless way she had noticed before. Finally, Kaya shook his head. "Too dangerous for you? If we are found at your ranch, you will be arrested as traitor to your own people." "I don't care," Elena said, surprising herself with the fierce emotion in her voice. "I won't let you face danger alone when I could help." Dakota stepped forward and gently touched her shoulder. "This is why we know you are right woman for us. Your heart big enough to risk everything for family." As they prepared for the dangerous journey back to Elena's ranch, she realized that her decision had already been made. Somewhere during the past few days, these 7 men had stopped being strangers, with an unusual proposal, and had become the family she had always dreamed of having. The only question now was whether they would all survive, long enough for her to tell them yes. Elena and the 7 warriors made it back to her ranch, just as the first light of dawn broke over the mountains. They had traveled through the night using secret paths that Ahiga knew to avoid any army patrols. The men immediately set up a hidden camp in a grove of trees near the stream, where they couldn't be seen from the main road. Elena had barely finished her morning chores when she spotted dust clouds on the horizon, riders approaching fast. Her heart pounded as she recognized the blue uniforms of cavalry soldiers. There were at least a dozen of them, led by a stern-faced officer with cold gray eyes. "Morning, miss," the officer said as he dismounted near her porch. "I'm Captain Reynolds. We're searching this area for a band of Apache renegades who left the reservation without permission. Have you seen any Indians around these parts?" Elena forced herself to stay calm, even though she could feel sweat gathering on her forehead. "No, sir, I haven't seen anyone. I live alone out here, so I'd notice if strangers came around." Captain Reynolds studied her carefully, as if he was trying to determine whether she was telling the truth. "Mind if we search your property? These Apache are dangerous, and we need to make sure they're not hiding anywhere nearby." "Of course," Elena replied, knowing she had no choice. "But as you can see, there's not much here to search. Just the house, barn, and corrals." While the soldiers searched her buildings, Elena's mind raced. She knew the 7 men were hidden well enough that casual searching wouldn't find them. But if the soldiers decided to make camp nearby or search the entire area thoroughly, discovery was inevitable. "You live out here all alone?" Captain Reynolds asked, joining her on the porch after his men finished their search. "That's unusual for a young woman. Don't you have family somewhere?" "My grandmother died last winter," Elena explained. "This ranch is all I have left." "Dangerous life for a woman alone," the captain observed. "These Apache we're tracking are particularly hostile. Their leader is a man called Kaya, and he's known for taking white captives. If you see any signs of them, you need to report it immediately." Elena's blood ran cold when she heard Kaya's name spoken with such hatred. The gentle, thoughtful man she had come to care for was being described as a dangerous criminal. What did they do? She asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. Left the reservation without permission, for one thing, Captain Reynolds replied. That's a federal crime. We also suspect them of stealing horses and cattle from nearby ranches. They need to be brought back to face justice. Elena bit her tongue to keep from defending the men she knew were innocent of those charges. She had seen how respectfully they treated animals and property. They would never steal from struggling ranchers. We'll be making camp about 5 miles down the road, the captain continued. Our scouts will be patrolling this whole area for the next few days. If you see or hear anything suspicious, fire 3 shots in the air and we'll come running. After the soldiers left, Elena waited until she was sure they were gone before making her way to the hidden camp. She found the 7 men tense and ready for trouble, their weapons within easy reach. They're looking specifically for you, Kaya, she reported. The captain mentioned you by name and called you hostile. They're camping nearby and plan to patrol this area for days. Kaya's jaw tightened, but he didn't seem surprised. We expected this. Reservation officials do not like when Apache think for themselves. They want us dependent and controlled. You have to leave, Elena said urgently. If they find you here, they'll arrest all of you. And they said I'd be in trouble too for helping you. We will not run and leave you in danger, Dakota declared firmly. If soldiers suspect you help Apache, they might hurt you after we gone. Elena looked around at the 7 faces she had come to love and felt her heart breaking. Then what can we do? We can't fight a whole patrol of soldiers. Nalnish spoke up quietly. There is another way. We could surrender. Go back to reservation peacefully. Soldiers would have no reason to suspect you of anything. No, Elena said immediately. I won't let you sacrifice your freedom for me. There has to be another solution. Goyathle, who had been silent until now, cleared his throat. There is old trail through the mountains that leads to Mexico. We could escape there, start new life away from reservations and army patrols. That means leaving everything behind, Ahiga pointed out. Village, family, homeland, and dangerous journey through desert. Elena felt torn apart by impossible choices. If the men stayed, they would eventually be captured. If they left for Mexico, she would never see them again. If they surrendered, they would spend years imprisoned on a reservation, cut off from their traditional way of life. Come with us, Hastian said suddenly. Elena, come with us to Mexico. We start new life together, all of us. The idea hung in the air like a challenge to everything Elena had ever known. Leave her ranch, her home, her entire life behind to flee into the unknown with 7 Apache warriors? It sounded like madness. But as she looked at these men who had become so important to her in such a short time, Elena realized that the ranch meant nothing without people to share it with. Her old life had been safe but empty. These men were offering her adventure, love, and belonging, everything she had ever dreamed of. How long do we have to decide? She asked. Soldiers will search systematically, Ahiga replied. Tomorrow, maybe day after, they find our camp. We must leave before then. Elena nodded, her mind made up. Then we leave tomorrow night. I'll gather what I can carry and meet you here after dark. Kaya stepped forward and took her hands in his. You sure about this? Once we cross into Mexico, no going back. You give up everything you know for uncertain future with us. Elena looked into his dark eyes and saw her own emotions reflected there. Fear mixed with hope. Uncertainty balanced by determination. I'm tired of being safe and alone, she said firmly. I'd rather face danger with people I love than spend another day by myself. As the sun set on what might be her last night on the ranch, Elena began the painful process of deciding what parts of her old life she could carry into her new one. Tomorrow, she would either begin the greatest adventure of her life or make the biggest mistake she had ever made. But for the first time since her grandmother died, she wouldn't be facing the future alone. Elena spent her last day on the ranch packing only the most precious items she owned. Her grandmother's jewelry, a few photographs, some practical clothes, and the turquoise necklace Kaya had given her. Everything else would have to be left behind, including the cattle and horses she had cared for so faithfully. As night fell, she made her way to the hidden camp, where the 7 men waited with their horses ready for the dangerous journey ahead. The soldiers had been patrolling during the day, coming close enough that Elena could hear their voices from her porch. Ready? Kaya asked softly as Elena approached with her small bundle of belongings. Elena took one last look at her ranch house, dark and empty in the moonlight. I'm ready, The escape through the mountains was the most terrifying and exhilarating experience of Elena's life. They traveled only at night, hiding in caves and dense forest during the day while army patrols searched the area below. Ahiga led them along paths so narrow that one wrong step could mean a deadly fall. On the third night, they finally crossed into Mexico, where the reach of American soldiers ended. Elena felt a mixture of relief and sadness as she realized she could never return to her homeland without risking arrest. The journey to the hidden village in the Mexican mountains took another week. This settlement was different from the one Elena had visited before, smaller and more isolated but also freer. Here, Apache families who had escaped reservation life were building a new community based on their traditional ways. Elena was welcomed warmly by the villagers, who had heard about the prophetic vision of the fire-haired woman. Old Cocheta had made the journey south months earlier and was waiting for them with a knowing smile. "The spirits guided you safely to your new home," the elder said as she embraced Elena. "Now we can perform the sacred ceremony that will make you truly part of our people." Elena learned that the wedding ceremony was unlike anything in her own culture. It would take place over 3 days and involve the entire village. Each day would focus on different aspects of marriage. The first day on spiritual union, the second on family bonds, and the third on physical commitment. On the first day, Elena was taken to a secluded area by the village women, who helped her prepare for the ceremony. They braided her red hair with beads and feathers, painted symbolic designs on her face and hands, and dressed her in a beautiful white dress decorated with traditional Apache patterns. Meanwhile, the 7 men went through their own preparation rituals, fasting and meditating to purify their hearts and minds for the sacred commitment they were about to make. The spiritual ceremony took place at sunset on a high mesa overlooking the valley. Elena stood in the center of a circle formed by the 7 men, while Cocheta performed ancient rituals with sage, prayers, and blessings from the 4 directions. "Elena of the Fire Hair," Cocheta intoned, "do you accept these 7 warriors as your husbands, to love and honor them as they will love and honor you? Do you promise to be the heart of their family, the mother of their children, and the keeper of their traditions?" "I do," Elena replied, her voice strong despite her nervousness. Each man then spoke vows to her individually, promising different aspects of devotion. Kaya vowed to be her guide and protector. Dakota promised to defend her from all harm. Nalnish pledged to keep her healthy and heal her sorrows. Ahiga swore to watch over her safety. Bidzi committed to providing for all her needs. Goyathle promised to share the wisdom of generations. And Hastin vowed to bring joy and laughter to her days. Elena was deeply moved by the sincerity in their voices and the sacred nature of the ceremony. This wasn't just a marriage. It was a spiritual transformation that would make her part of something much larger than herself. The second day focused on family bonds. Elena was formally adopted by the tribal elders as their daughter, given an Apache name, Eitzel, meaning star who lights the darkness, and taught the family histories of each of her 7 husbands. She learned that these men had chosen each other as brothers long before they decided to seek a shared wife. They had fought together, hunted together, and grieved together through many hardships. Their bond was so strong that sharing a wife seemed natural rather than strange. Elena also met the extended families of her new husbands, parents, siblings, and cousins, who welcomed her with genuine warmth. She began to understand that in Apache culture, marriage wasn't just between individuals but between entire family networks. The third day was the most intimate part of the ceremony. Elena was taught about the physical aspects of plural marriage by older women who had experience with such arrangements. She learned that the men would approach her gently and without jealousy, understanding that her affection for one didn't diminish her caring for the others. That evening, Elena and her 7 husbands were blessed by the entire village and escorted to a special dwelling that had been prepared for their wedding night. The building was large enough to give everyone privacy, but designed to encourage the family unity that was central to their new relationship. Elena felt nervous but not afraid as she looked at the 7 men who were now her husbands. They had courted her with patience and respect, and she trusted them to continue treating her with the same gentle consideration. "We will go slow," Kaya assured her. "This is beginning of lifetime together. No need to rush anything." As the village celebration continued outside with drums and singing, Elena began her new life as the cherished wife of 7 devoted husbands. The woman who had lived alone for so many years was now the center of a loving family that would never let her face the world by herself again. Under the starlit Mexican sky, surrounded by the warmth of her new community, Elena finally understood what it meant to be truly home. The scared, lonely rancher from Arizona was gone forever, replaced by Itzel, the beloved star who would light the way for generations of Apache children yet to be born. 6 months after the wedding ceremony, Elena, now called Itzel by her Apache family, discovered she was carrying her first child. The news brought celebration throughout the village, as it meant the prophecy was beginning to come true. The fire-haired woman was indeed bringing new life to the Apache people. Elena had adapted to her new life with remarkable ease. Living with 7 husbands had turned out to be far less complicated than she had feared. Each man respected the others and took turns spending private time with her, while also functioning as a unified family unit for daily activities. Kaya remained the leader and decision-maker, consulting with Elena on all important matters. Dakota had become her constant protector, never far from her side when she ventured outside the village. Nalnish monitored her health carefully, preparing special foods and medicines to ensure the baby would be strong and healthy. Ahiga taught Elena advanced tracking and survival skills, preparing her for the challenges of frontier life. Bidzi kept the family well fed with fresh game and had built additional rooms onto their dwelling to accommodate their growing family. Goyatle spent evenings teaching Elena more Apache history and traditions, while Hastian painted beautiful pictures documenting their life together. The village prospered during Elena's first months there. Her knowledge of ranching and farming, combined with traditional Apache skills, led to improvements in food production and water management. She also served as a bridge between the Apache community and Mexican traders, using her understanding of both cultures to negotiate fair deals for supplies. But Elena's greatest contribution came when a group of Mexican officials arrived to investigate reports of Apache settlements in their territory. The officials were suspicious and hostile until they met Elena, whose red hair and obvious pregnancy made it clear she was there by choice, not as a captive. Elena spoke passionately about the peaceful nature of the village and the Apache people's desire to live quietly without bothering anyone. Her sincerity and obvious happiness convinced the officials that this community posed no threat to Mexican citizens. They agreed to allow the village to remain, as long as the Apache continued to live peacefully. As her pregnancy progressed, Elena felt more connected to her new identity than she ever had to her old life. The lonely rancher seemed like a character from someone else's story. Here, surrounded by people who loved and valued her, she had found her true purpose. When her labor began on a crisp autumn morning, all 7 of her husbands waited anxiously outside while the village women helped with the birth. Elena drew strength from knowing that no matter what happened, her child would have 7 devoted fathers and an entire community ready to provide love and support. The baby boy was born healthy and strong, with his mother's red hair and his father's dark eyes. The village celebrated for 3 days, honoring the first child of the prophetic marriage that would help secure their people's future. Elena looked down at her son as he slept in her arms, surrounded by his 7 fathers who gazed at him with equal wonder and devotion. She thought about how different this moment was from anything she could have imagined during her lonely years on the Arizona ranch. "What will we name him?" she asked. Kaya spoke for all the brothers. "Ayana, eternal blossom. He is the flower that grows from the joining of our 2 peoples." As little Ayana grew, Elena discovered the joy of raising a child within a large, supportive family. The baby was never without attention or care, as his 7 fathers took turns feeding, playing with, and protecting him. Elena could rest when she needed to, knowing that responsible hands were always available to care for her son. The village children adored their new baby brother, and Elena loved watching them play together in the dusty paths between the houses. She was already pregnant with her second child, and the village elders spoke of the strong bloodline that would emerge from this sacred union. Elena established a trading post at the edge of the village, where Mexican and Apache people could meet safely to exchange goods and information. Her unique position as a white woman married into Apache culture made her the perfect mediator between different groups. Over time, Other isolated Apache families began arriving at the village, drawn by stories of the fire-haired woman who had brought prosperity and peace to her new community. Elena welcomed each new family, helping them settle in and find their place in the growing settlement. 2 years after her arrival, Elena stood on the mesa where she had been married, holding her young son while her second baby grew inside her. The village below had doubled in size and was thriving beyond anyone's expectations. Kaya joined her, wrapping his arms around both her and their child. "Do you ever miss your old life?" he asked. Elena considered the question seriously. She thought about her grandmother's ranch, the long, lonely nights, the constant struggle to survive alone in an unforgiving landscape. Then she looked at her son's bright eyes and felt the gentle movements of his sibling, thought about her 6 other husbands working in the village below, and the dozens of children who called her aunt or second mother. "No," she said finally, "that wasn't really living. That was just surviving. This is what life is supposed to be like." As the sun set over the Mexican mountains, painting the sky in brilliant shades of gold and red, Elena felt complete in a way she had never imagined possible. The woman who had been alone all her life was now the beloved center of a large, growing family that would carry her legacy forward for generations to come. She had found not just love, but purpose, belonging, and a future filled with hope. The prophecy had been fulfilled, but more than that, Elena had discovered that sometimes the most unexpected journeys lead to the most extraordinary destinations. In the distance, children's laughter echoed through the village as families gathered for the evening meal, and Elena smiled, knowing that she was finally truly home.